Hello, as you will have seen me discuss in my previous video, giving a 20-minute crash course in self-hypnosis, as of this day, I currently think the best way for anyone to learn self-hypnosis is to learn how to adopt the correct hypnotic mindset and be taught the self-directed, self-regulated skills by a competent professional, and then apply those skills and practice them to develop that skill and develop self-efficacy. And to really understand the cognitive set of the hypnotic mindset, do watch the relevant video on my YouTube channel. I'll put a link on this page somewhere or in the comments. Or go grab a copy of my Science of Self-Hypnosis book where it's explained in simple but comprehensive terms. So I'm talking all things Couéism today. Here he is. One of the most common things that I'm asked by people who have watched my recent videos or listened to some audio tracks, especially those learning self-hypnosis by themselves, is how they can tell if they did actually, do hypnosis correctly. They ask how they can tell if they're doing things right and making their suggestions work. So today's video is a bit of an extension of the all-important hypnotic phenomena component that was in my previous video, where I was talking about using a pen stick to the hand. And it's offering up a series of experiments to fine-tune your skills, enhance your belief, develop self-efficacy. Within the therapy room, hypnotherapists can feed back or ratify an individual's ongoing experience and give indications that are clear that someone is hypnotized. Likewise, hypnotherapists can use a variety of convincers and elicit a wide range of hypnotic phenomena that gives the client some evidence and proof that they are hypnotized. At a lecture recently, I watched Professor Irving Kirsch discuss how the positive expectancy and belief of the patient enhanced their hypnotizability and responsiveness to suggestions. And you can read about this and explore it in many books on the subject. But it therefore makes sense that we work out ways of enhancing self-hypnosis skills to enhance the beneficial responses that we are looking for. One of the greatest contributors to the field of self-hypnosis is Emile Coué, and it's the guy on my t-shirt here, whose method of autosuggestion was enhanced and developed for individuals learning it by teaching them a set of experiments to practice with. And this enhanced their own degree of self-efficacy and made them more responsive to autosuggestions, as well as developing skill with his method. Though Coué's method was not strictly known as self-hypnosis, it's considered a major contribution to the field of self-hypnosis, and the parallels are great. Today, I thought I'd share with you a series of Coué's waking suggestion experiments. They're very similar to suggestibility tests that are employed by perhaps street and stage hypnotists, as well as those used in research when determining hypnotic susceptibility. And these experiments require an engagement of the imagination in particular, and often result in what is referred to as idiomotor or idioreflex or idiosensory responses. That is, that when you truly engage the imagination, there's a physiological or sensory response to that which dominates the imagination. It creates a response of some kind that just will may be difficult to create. With these experiments, it's important to avoid the effort error that Coué often referred to. One of the biggest obstructions to successful outcomes with these experiments is trying so hard that it induces anxiety. Convince yourself of the outcome with a gentle assuredness. Use your believe in the successful outcome occurring and assume success. And this is going to advance the responses that you get and not impede your progress. Prior to starting any of these experiments, make sure that you're in a place where, ideally you're going to be undisturbed, you can focus, you can concentrate, you're able to engage without distraction. And you want to be sat or stood in a receptive, progressive, attentive posture with your feet flat on the floor, your arms not touching each other as much as possible. Coué stated, as was central to his work, that if you engaged the imagination strongly enough, that is, where will and imagination conflict, imagination prevails. He would give examples of people using their will unsuccessfully to get themselves back to sleep, or when having insomnia, or overcoming problems using too much forceful will that exasperated the issue at hand instead of helping. Having educated about that, he then extolled the virtues of imagination and suggestion rather than trying to force yourself to sleep. The work of Bandura that I mention often in my classrooms and in my writing about hypnosis for running in particular, demonstrates the need for self-efficacy. That is, the belief in your own ability to do something makes it far easier to do, and it's done more effectively. With this in mind, again, I reiterate the importance of gentle convincing and assuring yourself, believing in what you are doing as much as you can, not trying to force things to happen. In order to fine-tune your own self-hypnosis skills and become more responsive, and to develop your belief in your own self-hypnosis, have a go at these particular experiments. Firstly, salivating. Yes, a process that I've been using to demonstrate the power of imagination against the will and just determination alone is referred to by Coué in his book, My Method. If you simply told yourself and you tried to will yourself to dribble, okay, dribble uncontrollably, come on, you may not quite get the desired result. However, with this experiment, you imagine that you are taking a chilled lemon out of the fridge, it gets sliced in half and then in quarters, and you pick up one of the quarters, bring it to the mouth and sink your teeth right into it. You vividly imagine the texture, the juices running in and around the mouth, under the tongue, over the gums, and you make it as vivid as possible whilst you have adopted the hypnotic mindset, and notice how your mouth responds. And this demonstrates an idioreflex response, which is the effect of that suggestion in your imagination influencing the autonomic processes of the body. You salivate slightly more and you develop a sensation within your mouth as you engage your imagination. But also Chevreul's pendulum, and this was used by Coué a great deal. A man named Michel Eugene Chevreul. He was a well-known French chemist who in the early 1800s investigated what was initially seen as an occult phenomenon of the pendulum. And he wanted to give it a plausible scientific explanation. In 1812, Chevreul discovered the kind of psychophysiological basis of dowsing. Today, Chevreul's pendulum is used to demonstrate the astonishing and remarkably strong effects of self-hypnosis by people like me on hypnosis trainings and self-hypnosis seminars. And the experiment illustrates that the imagination can affect and influence physical movements. Secondly, it demonstrates that actions very often are sustained by the imagination without the interference of the conscious will. And thirdly and finally, that the mind can be trained by repetition. So you have a pendulum, or go get some string or any kind of similar stuff, cotton, and have it at a length of about 30-35 centimeters, attach a small weight to the end. You can use a ring or anything at that end that will serve as the weight for the pendulum, just for this experiment. And then rest your elbow on a tabletop or a solid surface, hold the string between your thumb and your forefinger so that the pendulum weight can just hang straight down, ideally a centimetre or two above the surface of the table. And try to hold the pendulum as still and immovable as possible. Let your arm be as loose as possible too while holding the string in this position. While holding the pendulum as still as possible with your arm as loose as possible, just imagine how it would feel if the pendulum started to swing vertically. So in your mind, you imagine it swinging. You imagine watching it swing vertically along the line, along a line, and don't do anything consciously to make it swing. Simply imagine it as intensely as you can, that the pendulum is starting to swing all on its own. Believe it's happening. In conjunction with the hypnotic mindset that you've adopted, after a couple of minutes of really engaging the imagination, you may well be finding that the pendulum actually starts swinging. It's likely that at first it'll be small swings, small movements, and then these soon grow to wide, bold swings. which is cool, that the pendulum takes tiny movements at one end and magnifies them and are expressed much more largely at the other end. So when you're imagining the pendulum swinging, your body makes very small, almost imperceptible movements in the right direction. The pendulum is an energy accumulating system, so minute, imperceptible swings begin to add up. After a while, the pendulum swings with easy to watch movements. The principle that Chevreul's pendulum investigation uncovered, that the human body reacts physically and chemically to imagined situations. You can use your hands locked together as another experiment where you clasp your hands tightly together and you hold your arms out straight. You then convince yourself that you cannot pull your hands apart, that they are stuck together. You imagine they're stuck together and you convince yourself of it. Coué would recommend that individuals tell themselves, I will open my hands, but I cannot, while simultaneously imagining the hands being stuck tightly together. The words are then repeated over and over in the mind in a convincing manner, using a tone that is as if the words are believed in. And notice that linguistic pattern there too. You start off by telling yourself, I will open my hands, before you say, I cannot. When you say that you will do it, it presupposes that this thing will happen in the future, but it's not happening right now. As long as it's happening in the future, it's not happening at this moment. And so it lends itself well to the notion of your hands being stuck together. Coué would often stand by and also add suggestion that the individual's hands were locked tighter. And that's him giving suggestion. But in order to derive a real self-induced response to this process, you engage your imagination in conjunction with your self-hypnosis skills and a hypnotic mindset. You continue to tell yourself that your hands are clenching tighter together, that they cannot be separated, and you imagine the idea and you convince yourself that they're stuck. And when you've convinced yourself that they're stuck, you've tested it, you can tell yourself, yep, I can open them, and imagine them coming apart to free them accordingly. The use of I cannot and I can is to be used with some of the other experiments here too. So for example, arm or leg catalepsy. So when I say catalepsy, I'm referring to your arm or your leg remaining solid and remains in position regardless of external stimulus. So you imagine that your arm's a steel bar, or it's made of a solid material. That means it cannot bend. And again, you'll use a similar type of linguistic pattern with yourself. I will be able to bend my arm, or I will bend my arm, but I cannot. And so while you then simultaneously imagine the arm to be solid and incapable of bending. The same process can be applied to the leg. You imagine that one or both of your legs are totally solid, and because they are rigid, you are unable to walk, for example. Convince yourself with your imagination and the strong belief, in conjunction with the self-hypnosis protocol, the hypnotic mindset. Not too dissimilar to this, you can create a tightly clenched fist and suggest to yourself that it's locked tighter and tighter, and use similar language and convincing imagery as with these other experiments. Once you've tested this and convinced yourself of each of the experiments, you then give yourself permission for the limb, the arm to bend, to loosen. You relax and tell yourself, I can bend it and loosen it. And then feel a sense of development and happiness with your progress, But along the way, you're convincing yourself, you're engaging your imagination, you're creating your reality. You can also stick your hands and fingers to things. With my previous video or other video clips, you may have seen of me doing this type of thing with students. Coué uses similar experiments within his own work, getting something stuck to the hand or getting the hand stuck to something. So you can do a pen stick as with my previous video, or a card stick, whereby you take a firm grip of a pen or a playing card or a piece of paper between the finger and the thumb. You imagine the fingers to be locked in place and the card or the pen to be stuck in the hand. again, you know, you state the same kinds of linguistic patterns to yourself, and you convince yourself of the card or the pen being stuck there. You know, I will drop the pen, but I cannot. When I do this with patients or students, just as Coué would do, the patient or the student is told that the more they try to drop the card or the pen, the more rigidly locked the fingers become, and the more stuck the card is or the pen is. And the fingers squeeze tighter, and you imagine them being stuck firm and fast with as much purpose as you can imagine. I give a lot more detail on this process in my previous video, so do go have a look at that. A similar process is to press your palm onto one of your legs, if you're sat, or a tabletop, and imagine that it's stuck tight and cannot be moved. Imagine it stuck with glue, or convince yourself with language. Again, use the self-hypnosis protocol, adopt the hypnotic mindset, and just engage in these imagination experiments, and convince yourself of these outcomes. Assume they are happening. Create your reality. When the imagination is vivid and the right level of belief and expectation is invested, you'll start to get some evidence and some proof that you're hypnotizing yourself, and you are convinced of the effects of your self-suggestion, your imagination, your self-hypnosis skills. But have fun with it. Enjoy doing some of that stuff, and train yourself up with these skills and belief in conjunction with the adoption of the hypnotic mindset. Okay, do subscribe to this channel. You'll be notified of my latest videos when they're published. Do go visit my my college website for more information about my online and classroom-based courses, and have a look at my members area. You know, it's a paradise for real hypnosis geeks. I send you my very best wishes. Goodbye for now.